What's up, guys? My name is Alexis Brown, your host with Praises in the Pod, and I am so excited to have one of my best friends here, Logan Walls.
Hey.
She is going to be sharing her testimony with us today, and we are just so excited to have her. So let's start off in prayer, and then we'll jump right in. Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for all your many blessings, dear God. Thank you for giving us this space where we can come together and just talk about you and talk about all the things that we've overcome because of you, Lord. We just pray that this just glorifies you. We pray that you speak to us and through us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, so earlier last week I sent you, some questions or whatever, just so you could try to prep. And so one of the first questions I sent was, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and stuff. So let's start there.
Okay, so I grew up in a broken home. My mom and dad divorced when I was really young, maybe like 3 months old. My parents both got mixed up in drugs, so I lived with my grandparents for a little while and spent a lot of time with them. My mom didn't stay mixed in with drugs for a long time, so when she recovered, I went back to live with her, but we bounced around a lot. We moved houses a lot, and as far as my dad, he was mixed in with drugs until I was like 18, and so when I was like 18, he finally got sober and started growing a lot in his faith.
Did y'all have like a relationship at all in those 18 years, or like
no,
you
not
didn't
at
know
all.
him at all?
I mean, I guess we kind of had a relationship. Like, I would go to his house and my stepmom's house and like spend the night or spend the weekend or something, but it was just uncomfortable. It was like, I don't know this man. Like,
it was just surface level.
Yeah, it was just like, I'm just going because I feel kind of obligated to go. I don't really like have a relationship with him. But so after he got sober, I mean, he had been in and out of like so many different rehabs. Like, I know he went to the Potter's house and all kind of different rehabs. And anyways, once he did finally get sober, he started growing a lot in his faith. Like, he started going to church, he started serving at church, started praying, and then he started inviting and like urging me to do the same. And so I would go to church with him occasionally. I would go occasionally with my granny when I was a child, but never consistently. And I didn't grow up in a house where my faith was something that was prioritized or something that was important.
I think that is so similar to my childhood. Like, both of my parents, they were mixed up in drugs my whole life. My dad still struggles, but my mom, she's free. Like, her chains have been broken, and I'm so grateful for that. But, like, I live with my grandma too. I would go to church here and there. So it just feels like we have so much in common. And, like, most of the time we don't talk about our past or anything. Like, even though we're best friends, like, we're always in a group, and it's like we're talking about deep things, but it's never really like where we came from. Yeah. So it's just like so awesome, like when we do see those parallels where we are on the exact same, so.
And like, I feel bad even like talking about my mom, especially like with her, being mixed in with drugs and stuff, because it was so short lived. Like, and she's been like, those chains have been broken for her for like years and years and years. Like, I feel bad even talking about it because she's been recovered for so long. But I mean, that did play a part in my childhood and like how I grew up and, having to live with my grandparents and all that stuff. So, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning.
It's y'all's story, but it played a part in mine. So, like, I don't want to leave out things. Like, I want to be authentic and I want to be transparent and show really like how God has worked,
And your childhood is like so important. Like, it really like builds the foundation of your life. And it's just, I feel like that's just stuff you can't leave out.
Yeah, exactly. What are some of the things that you struggled with prior to encountering God for the first time and really surrendering? Like, what did your life look like BC, as I would usually say?
I feel like I did some crazy stuff before I got saved. I mean, I smoked weed, I drank a lot of alcohol, I partied a lot, looked for validation from guys since I never had a great relationship with my dad growing up. After my dad got saved and started inviting me to church, something started to change in me. I didn't want to drink and get drunk anymore. I didn't want to have a sinful relationship with a guy. I wanted to do better. But, before I got saved and everything, I was in a really toxic relationship with a guy. And it wasn't just the guy's fault. I was just as toxic, and we were just not good for each other. My dad would like beg us to come to church with him, and so we would occasionally, but we were just going to make him happy and to stop asking us.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's really where the seed was planted in me, because he was so strong in his faith at that point, and he was the only one like inviting me to church, and you know, really like putting the pressure on me to come.
Yeah.
And so, me and this guy broke up, and at some point, you know, I just spiraled. It's like a breakup will do that to you.
Downhill.
It's like, I mean, worse than ever. I was drinking. I was partying every night. I was like looking for all these different guys. You know, I'd moved out on my own, and you know, I didn't have any like accountability from my grandparents or my mom or anybody. I moved out on my own. I was just doing my own thing. I was just going out. I was on all these apps. Like,
how old were you when you first moved out?
22, I think. It was like right before I graduated college. I was living with my grandparents at the time. It's like, dang, I can't party and stuff if I'm living with my grandparents. Like, I can't have people over. I can't like be having all these drinks. Like, I gotta get out of here so I can like live it up.
Yeah.
And I really regret that because, you know, now my grandparents aren't, you know, my grandma has passed away and my grandpa's in the nursing home. And I do really regret like moving out because I wish I would have had that time with them.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyways, when you know, my priorities were not in order at that point, I was like, I just want to do what I think is going to make me so happy, which is partying and drinking and, you know, just going out and doing all this stuff.
Yeah, I literally lived at home all the way until I moved in with my husband. And so, like, I would always lie. Like, I remember just telling my dad these constant lies, like, oh, I'm at a friend's house and all this, and I'm just out just sinning, doing everything he told me I cannot do. And, you know, like, I'm so glad that I did, like, even though I was lying, like, having that accountability, it kind of reeled me in just enough, you know. So I know, girl, like, I couldn't imagine moving out at, like, a young age and just being like, I can do whatever I want. Like, so.
And it was like, I mean, not that, like, I had a roommate at the time. You know, we moved in together, and she had moved from her college to Warner Robins. And not that it's her fault, but she also liked to party. And so that we just kind of fed into each other, you know. Like, she went out, I would go out with her. She would have people over, we would party together. And so it was just you know, we were both kind of like feeding into each other.
Yeah. So you're partying, you're going through a breakup, you are spiraling.
At that point, like, when I'm in this like mindset of like just partying and everything, it's just like you wake up every day and you're like, I need to find some kind of purpose in this day. And so your purpose is just to go get drunk. It's just a like revolving door. You just keep doing it over and over and over again.
Well, because you don't know what else to do.
Exactly.
You know, like you don't feel like you have a purpose. So you're like, well, what can I go do today? You know, like that was one of the things that like towards the very end, it was a constant cycle, a constant revolving door of I would get drunk. The next morning I wake up, I don't feel good. And, you know, like I'm hungover, I'm eating all day. Like I gained so much weight that last year of me being out there, and just I would eat all day, sleep all day, and then drink some more, you know. So it just was so hard. Like, and then finally, like when I fell and, you know, God got my attention and stuff, I'm like, there is so much more than this life. Like just being drunk, I don't even remember, you know, my early 20s because I was constantly doing stuff and constantly drunk. I don't even have memories. Like people will bring stuff up and I'm like, huh? Yeah. You know, like we went where? Yeah. And I don't even remember. And that's so sad to me because now I'm like, I have all these memories. I have all these experiences. And like, I wish I could have told my younger self, you know, girl, go to church.
Well, to me, it's like whenever I was drinking and stuff, it was like even when I was like in my childhood, like I never saw any families or any groups of people that were Christians that were having fun. So in my mind, I was like, you can't have fun unless you're like drinking and stuff. And so that was kind of my mindset. I'm like, Christians don't have fun.
That's exactly my mindset. Like, cause I didn't know anybody really either that was like a family that, you know, was just always involved in the church, serving, doing things. Like, I mean, I just thought it was lame. Yeah. I'm gonna be quite honest. Like I was like, y'all got all these rules you got to follow. I actually posted a TikTok about this yesterday. I posted a TikTok and I said, you know, like people think that Christians have all these rules, but in my eyes, I've never been more free.
Same, but you have to get over that like mindset. Yes. Because I mean, when you are like bound by those chains of alcohol and stuff, you just can't see anything past it. But once you're finally free, you're like, man, I am having a good time and I feel good. Yes. Like I don't have to have this to have a good time.
And I think that is one thing, because we're blinded. We don't see how we could ever come out of those circumstances that we're in. The chains is gone, honey. Like, he can make anything happen. Yeah. So was there like a moment that like really grabbed your attention, a message, like a series of events where you were like, this just isn't it anymore? Like, I'm ready. I'm ready to really surrender.
Yeah. So I think my surrender moment was one night my roommate and I had a party at our apartment. My younger brother was there, and he was like probably 16 or 17 at this point. So of course we had like alcohol. Some of the people there were like smoking weed and just bad stuff that like he shouldn't have been around. Like, he's 16, 17 years old. Like, why am I putting him there? So anyways, my mom ended up finding out what happened that night, you know, what all we had there. And she just ripped into me about putting my brother in that situation. And I just broke down. I was like, man, I really am like a terrible person. Like, I'm putting my young brother in this situation. Yeah. Like, not that he was doing any of that stuff. He wasn't drinking or smoking weed or anything, but like, I'm putting him in that situation. Like, I'm exposing him to that stuff. And that's like opening a door in his life for him to be, you know, for him to drink and for him to smoke and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I just broke down. I just knew I was in such a bad place and I needed to stop before I hurt myself or got myself into trouble. So I started going to church literally the next day.
You said, this is it, honey. I'm going to church.
I was like, I got to do something. And so I had gone to Southside before when I was like really young, and I knew they had like the smaller location, Pleasant Hill. And so I started going to Pleasant Hill, and I was like, I have to change. Like, it's not an option. So of course I didn't change, you know, overnight. I still drank here and there, partied here and there, but I didn't feel good about it. So a few weeks later, my dad passed away unexpectedly, and I was devastated because we just started to develop a good relationship. So after that happened, I was really broken more than ever. I was at church that next Sunday, and J. Ray asked, you know, is there anyone that doesn't have a relationship with God and wants one? So I raised my hand. I didn't know what to do or how to go about being a Christian, but I knew I wanted to try and that I needed to try. So I think that was October of 2020. And so after that moment, I cut off everything. I stopped drinking, stopped hanging out with my quote unquote friends, stopped partying, deleted all my dating apps, everything. I was so happy for this life change, but also I was really lonely. I didn't have any friends. And like we were saying earlier, I didn't know what my purpose was. Like, it is really lonely when you cut all of that stuff off because you have to like start over. Yeah. You don't want to hang out with the same people. You don't want to be with the same people that are drinking and stuff. And, you know, on one side, like, you feel so good, you feel so happy because you do feel free, but it's also like you're very lonely because you don't have any of those people anymore. Yeah. And, you know, like, that's one of the biggest things with, like, Sisters of Faith is this transition period, because we want to make this decision. We encounter God. We see what all he can do. He's broke our chains. But then it's like, well, how do I live? Yeah, you know, exactly. This is how I've been my whole entire life. This is all I've ever known. So how do I change my lifestyle? How do I change this stuff? And so, you know, right when you do, you know, surrender and start following God, it's just so important to get plugged in. Yes. People, you know, think like, oh, it's for numbers. Like, they just want us to come. They want to get their numbers up. No, like, God calls us to be a part of a community. Like, iron sharpens iron, and we need people around us, you know? The most important thing for me after I got saved was finding that community, because it's like, you cannot do it on your own. Shout out to Kayla Hill, because she was the first friend I ever made at Southside, and she just like really just took me in. I hung out with her so much. She really helped me grow in my faith, her and Daniel both, and they really helped me to just find a purpose and realize that I could have fun without drinking alcohol, because they would have like game nights and like people come over to their apartments and they would invite me, and I'm like, wow, like, you guys really do have fun without drinking and stuff. So they played a huge part in my salvation and my, like, you know, there after my salvation and like building that community and stuff. And another thing that you said about, you know, being at church that Sunday, and Pastor J. Ray or Josh, he, you know, gave an altar call basically, like, are you ready to surrender? Are you ready to, you know, ask Jesus to be your Lord and Savior? You know, that is just so big that you raise your hand. Because, you know, I feel like sometimes people are like, they feel God knocking and they feel like God speaking to them in that moment. And some people, you know, just don't have the confidence to raise their hand, or they're like, what's going to happen once I raise my hand?
you know? And so just giving, you know, like saying, here I am, God, like I'm ready to really make a change. Like that is just so big and just so bold of you, honestly. Like I commend people like that. Like I know I raised my hand when I was a kid, but like, you know, as a kid, we do have that childlike faith. We do like, we're like, yes, me, you know, I want to come down. But like, as an adult to do that, like every week I like celebrate recovery and everything. Like when I see people do that, I'm like, Lord, like I know you are knocking, because it takes, you know, bravery and confidence to raise your hand and say, I'm ready. Here it is.
Yeah. And you're so like nervous because you're like, are they gonna tell me to like come up here? Are they gonna come to me? Are they gonna like call me out? They're gonna say, Logan, this girl raised her hand. No. But I just think like, you know, and I don't even think it was the message, like not anything bad about the message, but it was just that I was so desperate. I was like, God, I need something. Like I need to change. Like I need you to help me.
Yes.
Like, and I was just so desperate for it. I just threw my hand up and I was like, I don't know what this means, but
we're going to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out. And I just remember being so hungry. Like after that day when I raised my hand, something inside me just changed. And I was like, I went home. I'm like reading my Bible. I'm like, God, I'm just flipping through all this. I'm like, what do I need to do? How do I do this? Show me something, teach me something. And I was just so hungry for it because I was like desperate for that change.
It's so overwhelming when you first like give it up to God, because you're so hungry and you want to be that sponge. You know, you have that childlike faith in that point because you're a baby Christian. You want to know everything. And I remember when I first started on this like walk, and I'm like, I can't read enough. And I'm not a fast reader. I'm going to be honest. So I'm like, so I started listening to the Bible app, and I would do it like times 2. I would speed that thing up so I can get through, and I can get like, okay, good. Because I mean, I wasn't reading fast enough, and you're so hungry at the beginning where you're just like, what? Tell me, like, use me, speak to me. Like you're in like, So I know what you mean.
I just remember like constantly reading my Bible, and like now I'm thinking back on it, I'm like, I should be like that still, you know, like I still want to be that hungry, but it's just so different when you first get saved, because it's like, you just want to learn so much. And, and it is, like you said, overwhelming, because it's like, you think to yourself, am I ever going to learn all this? Am I ever going to catch up to all these people?
Yes.
But, you know, you just have to take it day by day.
One of the biggest things too was I would beat myself up when I first surrendered, and I started like, and I would sin, and I mean, I still, you know, but like at the end of the day, like I was realizing how much I sinned. Like I remember I used to have a filthy mouth. Like every word that came out of my mouth almost was a cuss word. And so like right when I first surrendered, like I'm like, oh, am I ever going to be able to stop cussing? Like, am I ever going to be able to let that go? And like, have you seen that video? Like it's went viral so many times where it's a cup of water and it's black and they put it under a faucet, and it like, that is so true. I love that analogy. I love that visual, because the longer that we walk with God, the longer that we have that relationship and keep seeking him, like he will get rid of all that sin. You know, like obviously we're going to sin the rest of our life and do things, but you're not going to feel good about it. And he surely, like the sins that I struggled with back then are different sins than I struggle with now. Okay, so like once you were in church that day, you know, you surrender, you go home, and like were there fears, were there reservations? Like you're like, well.
Definitely, because I knew, you know, with life change, like I was going to be losing those friends. Like I wasn't going to be hanging out with the party people anymore. I wouldn't be able to like just drown out my like sorrows and sadness with alcohol. Like I didn't know anything about scripture or about the Bible. It was scary for me, because like, I mean, when you first look at the Bible, you're like, what does this say? You know, just like it says in scripture, like you're being made new. Like you have a whole new life, and you pretty much have to start from scratch. Like you've got to make those new friends. You've got to make a new life for yourself. Your whole personality changes. Like I just remember everybody knew me. Like I had the alcohol, I had a vape, like I was going to the party. Yep. And it's like when you start changing that and people see you out, I'm sure you experience this too. They're like, what are you doing? Like, you're not drinking? Like, where's your vape? Like, you didn't bring any alcohol? And I'm like
you're known for that. So like I'm embarrassed because now y'all think I'm weird because I'm not doing this stuff. Exactly. I literally smoked cigarettes from like I was like 14 years old. No, absolutely no reason. No reason. Then when I cut it cold, they're like,
yeah,
what?
I know. The vape, it took me forever. That was the hardest thing to get rid of.
Girl, because it was so convenient.
It's so convenient, and it doesn't smell. Like, it's easy to get. Like, you can still drive with it. Like, it's not like alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, you can't drink and drive, but you can drive and vape.
Girl, I know what you mean. Like, I am so embarrassed about this. And I am so embarrassed.
I just remember, like, being at red lights, and I'd be like, everybody can see me. Like, nobody from the church is next to me.
Girl, one time, oh my gosh, I got two things about this vape. So, when I first started getting involved with church, like, I was hanging out with Chloe and Catherine. I'm so embarrassed. So I was still vaping. Like, I had already been feeling like convicted about the vape, but I mean, I'm in a chokehold.
Yes, same.
I cannot, like, I can't fathom, and so Catherine, we were meeting to play pickleball or something, and I wasn't expecting this girl to get my car. Like, I was not expecting it, and I had just bought a new one, so a box was in the floorboard. Honey, I locked the door so fast. Through it. But that was the first time that I really felt like a hypocrite. Like, here I am hiding, and I'm like, she's supposed to be, like, one of my friends, everything, and like, now it was just so bad. And so, come to find out, I'm telling them this story more recently. I'm a book bag girl through and through. You ain't gonna catch me without a book bag. And so I had a pencil bag. And Chloe said that I took the pencil bag out one day and there was a vape in the pencil bag. And we was at church, girl. And she said she saw it and she was just like, I know her heart.
She's working on it.
She's working on it. I ain't even gonna say nothing. But that made me start thinking even more. Like, this is after I've gave up vaping.
Yeah.
So, like, thank God she didn't say that, like, back then, because I would have lost it. But, just stuff like that, like, I do, like, it's just, it really does take time to get rid of that. Because when I first started, I remember telling somebody, like, once I quit drinking, they were like, are you going to quit vaping? Absolutely not.
No.
Oh, no. I'm going to vape till I die. But then, like, as time went on, I'm like, oh, my gosh. Like, and so when I went to a women's conference in November, like, I had been sober for, like, 2 months. And I went to a women's conference, and I was like, God, like, I want to surrender this vape to you. Like, I don't want to be a hypocrite no more. I don't want to be hiding it and everything else. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed. And I'm like, when I came home, it was tough. But I wanted it. Like, I wanted to do better. So that is so big when you really want something.
I think you just have to get to that point with some stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you have to go through that phase where you're like embarrassed and like ashamed. And then you finally get to that point where you're like, I just need to get rid of it.
So you gave it up to God. You're like, I'm doing better. I'm walking differently now. Get rid of those things that are keeping me captive. How did this new life look? Like, being brought from dead to life.
I just cried out for God to help me because I knew I couldn't change on my own, and he answered me. I wasn't perfect, obviously. And like I said earlier, there were definitely times where I felt alone because I had to start over. I had to make new friends that loved Jesus like I do. I had to stop drinking. And I honestly look back over my life and see how God was present in so many ways.
Amen.
He really had been chasing me for years, through me going to church with my grandma, through my dad trying to invite me to church. Like, he's been chasing me for a long time at this point. Mm-hmm. And I just never listened or submitted to him, and the devil works hard.
He does, honey. But my God works harder, okay? Because he got me.
He got me. But once again, even through all that, I prayed to God. I was like, God, send me godly friends. Help me see a purpose without alcohol. And he answered. He sent me some of the best friends I could have asked for that pushed me in my faith and encouraged me when I was struggling. And I will say, when I first surrendered to God, I was like, God, how is this even going to be possible? Like, I'm too far gone. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm grown. I don't know how to make new friends. Like, everybody already knows me as, like, a party girl. But he changed all that, like he really made me like completely new. I'm not known as a party girl anymore. I'm known as like a girl that loves Jesus. Yep. So it is possible no matter how far, because I thought I was like way too far gone, but no matter how far gone you think you are, like he can bring you back.
Facts. Because I mean, like, I was known as a party girl too. Yeah. I just remember when I surrendered and I'm like walking this out, I'm like, how in the world am I going to be able to go the rest of my life without alcohol? Time went on, and they say at Celebrate Recovery, like one day at a time. And I'm like, okay. So as time went on, I'm like, well, one day at a time ain't bad. Yeah, you know, and then exactly. I look back and I'm like, it's been a month. Yeah. Like, it's been a week. I remember my first week, I'm like, whoa, yeah. Like, I'm good. And then so as time went on, I'm like, I'm fine. Like, I love my life without it. I can't even imagine, like, having a drink or anything now. Like, so what were some of the first changes you noticed once you were on the side of Jesus?
So I think the first thing that I really, noticed was just peace. Like, it sounded like, I know even before I got saved, I would hear people talk about God's peace. And I'm like, whatever. Like, you don't really believe it, but like, God truly can give you peace like no other. Yes. Like, it's really unexplainable. I don't even know. I don't know how to explain
peace, because like, I just have such a different peace, like, even about God's will, like the things going on in my life. Like, I'm just like, you know what? Like, right. He's got a plan. I'm at peace about things.
I would also say that I started feeling conviction. God started changing me the day I surrendered. I'm human, of course. I messed up even after I surrendered, but each time I felt worse and worse about it until I was like, okay, God is telling me this isn't who you are anymore. Mm-hmm. This isn't who you're called to be. Like, of course I still messed up, but every time I would mess up, I would feel worse and worse about it. And I'm like, eventually you just got to get rid of it altogether.
Yeah, you do. So you're attending Southside, and girl, you got you a man's, honey. God done sent you a man's. So tell me a little bit about like your husband Micah and how y'all started dating and all that.
Okay, so I was serving at a father-daughter dance at Southside Warner Robins, and he was there. I guess he was serving too. And so I was working the punch, so like just filling people's cups with punch, working the little snack table. And he saw me there and didn't speak to me, but then asked Pat Chastain who I was. And so Pat's daughter Carly dates my brother Cameron. So of course Pat knew me too. And he's like, oh yeah, that's Logan, Carly's friend. So he had talked to Pat, and he also talked to my friend Kayla, and he wanted to get to know me so bad, but never reached out. Like, at this point, he's like so shy. Mm-hmm. Like, he's very shy. And he even messaged me on my birthday one year to say happy birthday, and that's all. And so anyways, I guess he eventually worked up the nerve to talk to me. So he messaged me on Instagram, inviting me to, I think it was like a young adults event at the church. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I go to the same church as you. Like, I'm already invited. But I knew he was just trying to slide in my DMs, So anyways, that same day he asked me for my number so he could invite me to future events. And we texted back and forth for probably almost a year.
Oh my God.
Like, without meeting each other. One night I would go to volleyball at the Pleasant Hill campus. And so I was like, just come to volleyball tonight. We can meet, see if we click or whatever. Like, at this point, I wasn't really interested in having a relationship. I was trying to work on my spiritual relationship and all that stuff. And so.
Did he not normally go to volleyball?
No.
Okay.
The thing like,
I bet everybody when he walked in, they were like,
exactly.
What is he doing here?
He did not go to volleyball. Yeah. And so, needless to say, we hit it off, and we just kept hanging out. I think, like, the next time we hung out, we, like, sat in the parking lot at the church for, like, 4 hours and just talked.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was, like, so funny because we could not be more opposite. Like, now, though, like, that we just celebrated our 1 year anniversary.
Yay!
And so now that we've been, married for a year, and, like, we've been dating for, I guess, almost 3 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's hard to keep up, honestly. But we've kind of, like, adapted to each other's personalities a little bit. So, like, he does things that I enjoy, and I do things that he enjoys now. Yeah. We kind of, like, compromise in that way. And so it works out really well.
I do think that y'all have rubbed off on each other because, like, I didn't know y'all prior when y'all were separates, but like you saying you going to do all this stuff, like, and I'm like, girl, you stay at home.
No, that is so like that is the craziest part, because like I really have turned into a huge homebody, like being married,
asleep by like 8 o'clock. Like
I can't even explain that.
And then like Micah also did not know him prior either, but everybody just says like he's just so like more, lively and talking and just out, like he's just different. Like y'all have really brought out the best of each other.
We really have. Like I remember him when we first met, and I was like, you know, thinking how opposite we were. And now I'm like, this is like the perfect person for me. Like, we really have like changed into like the best versions of ourselves for each other too.
Oh, that is so sweet. Shout out Micah. How really was this relationship different? You know, like besides, you know, just the way it started, because y'all texted and didn't hang out, you know, for a year. So y'all getting to know each other. But like, how does this relationship look different than previous relationships?
Well, the main thing is this relationship was so different because Micah didn't care about the physical aspect of our relationship. Obviously, he thought I was beautiful, but we both knew that we were waiting until marriage. He didn't push any boundaries. He was very respectful, and most of all, he just loved me for me and not for what I looked like. He truly cared about me and wanted to learn about me and pursue me the way a godly man should. Before I met Micah, like, I was like, you know, I was open to like dating or whatever, and I would meet these guys and they would be like Christians on the outside, but then they would still like want to, you know, push boundaries and do things that I wasn't comfortable with. And I was like, you know, this isn't a godly man. Like, you know, I'm going to just wait. Like, you know, this isn't who God has for me. Like, and Micah was just different in that way because he was so respectful of boundaries. Like, we both had boundaries, like, and we weren't willing to compromise those.
So I don't even know if we've said this, but Micah's granddad was the pastor of Southside for the past 35 years. And then his dad stepped in as our lead pastor now for the last year or so. So like, how was that? You know, like as a newer Christian, like were you intimidated, like dating like the pastor's son and someone also that had been following Christ their whole life? You know, like how was that?
Yeah, it was definitely intimidating. As a new Christian, I was like, I'm so far behind this guy. Like, I'm never going to learn as much as he knows. Like, I'm not good enough to be a part of a family that have been Christians their entire life. And, you know, at the end of the day, the enemy just would have loved to steal our relationship from us. I went to counseling. I talked to Pastor Dennis.
And Pastor Dennis, girl, he will lay it down for you. Like, he really has helped me.
I struggled bad with that because I was like, you know, that was a lot of the battle when we were dating was just like, I'm not good enough. And obviously that's the devil. Like, you know, he hates marriage. He hates marriage, and he hates when people love God and they come together and get married and love God together. It is very intimidating when they've all been Christians their entire life, and you know, I can't hide my past from them. Like they're gonna find out. Like she was an alcoholic. Like she smoked. Like, you know, you can't hide that stuff from everybody. And so I was like, am I gonna be good enough for this family after they find out all this stuff? And they were just so welcoming. Like I really could not like have asked for a better family to be married into because they don't care about all that stuff. They care about who I am now and how I love Jesus now.
Gosh, that's awesome, girl. That is so good. That is so good.
One thing that I did before me and Micah started dating, like we hung out a few times and then he was like, okay, I'm ready for you to be my girlfriend.
Oh,
like he didn't waste no time. Like
he said, that's my woman.
He wanted to be boyfriend and girlfriend. And so I was like, okay, well, before you like make that decision, I got to tell you some stuff.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Because you don't want it to come down. Like, I mean, one, you want to be open and honest, you know, because we shouldn't have the intention of dating just to date. Yeah. We have the intention to marry when we're dating. And so when we get married, we become one flesh and they should know everything about you and everything else. So you were just like, you know what? I'm about to tell you. And then we move.
Yeah. I was like, I don't want to waste any of our time. Like, I want you to know all this, and you can make that decision if you still want to date me or not. I mean, it was hard for him at first because he was like, I mean, it is shocked. You know, he was shocked, I guess. And so, like, it is hard for him. But at the end of the day, I guess he still wanted to date me. So he was he's like, I can look past it, girl. Yeah.
Okay, so you said y'all just celebrated your 1 year, went on a cruise last week. Yeah. So what are some of those like big, you know, lessons that you have learned in this past year?
You know, when you first get married or like when you're engaged, everybody's like, the first year of marriage is the hardest. Like, I'm like, why are y'all telling me that first of all? Let me just enjoy it. But that was so not true for us. Like we had a great time for our first year of marriage. But the biggest thing that I have learned in our marriage so far is that you have to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give grace. Your husband is your partner, and it's me and Micah against our problems, not me against Micah.
Ooh.
Forgiving and putting my pride aside is something that I struggle with so much, and I'm still learning to be better at. Like, the biggest thing that I have learned is that I have to say when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And I have to ask for forgiveness and say I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard for me. But communication and forgiveness and grace is just so big in a marriage.
Yeah. Because I struggle with that same thing, is just that pride and not wanting to say sorry and like, well, you need to look at yourself,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And so I just recently graduated from a 12-step class that we do at Celebrate Recovery. And like, that was one of the things that was brought to my attention. I never even knew that like I was so prideful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I never knew that I was like, I wanted to point the finger at everybody else. Like, no, it ain't me, you know? And so like, now that I have been aware of that, because I've been married for 3 years next week, and so like I feel like that has helped me like move into my marriage in a different way now.
And then also like learning each other's love languages and really like leaning into that and making sure your partner's like love tank is filled up.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we all have different love languages. You know, mine's quality time, so we have to make sure we're spending enough time just me and him. And his is words of affirmation, so I have to make sure I'm, like, you know, encouraging him and, you know, making sure he knows I love him. So that's a big thing, too, just making sure our love tanks are filled up. Because when me, personally, when my love tank is empty, I'm so mad.
Yeah. I'm not pleasant to be around.
And, like, Micah thinks of quality time differently than I do.
Yeah.
Like, he thinks, you know, if we're both sitting in the bed on our phone, that's quality time.
Yeah.
It's not quality time to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's bad against him. I'm just saying, like, for me, quality time is, like, we need to be sitting here talking to each other, like, hanging out, like, watching something together, like, something like that.
It is so important to know other people's love languages, like, because for years, I love to show love in gift giving. People don't receive gifts. Like for instance, I have grown stepchildren, and I would gift. I would love bomb them in gifts, right? Just please love me. And like over the years, they would just be like, you know, thanks, you know, whatever. And I'm like, well, look, I'm trying to show you love, and to them, that's not showing love, you know, like. And so they were the reasons that it's opened my eyes to different love languages or whatever. Because the same thing with my husband. He doesn't care about getting gifts, you know. But to me, I'm like, but this is, you know. So, and it's good to know that just because you like to show love that way doesn't mean that that's the way that you receive love. As we start to close, what is something that you hope someone takes away from your testimony?
I just hope that if there are any young women listening, that you would just wait on the Lord. Listen to the song, Wait on You, and keep praying, and just make that your anthem. I know as women we desire to be wives and moms, and it's just so hard to wait. But I just encourage you to just wait on the Lord and keep praying. There were a lot of times that I thought to myself, you know, just go find a guy and get married. Like, this is taking too long. I just want to start my family. But thankfully, God protected me from myself.
Yep.
I begged God to send me someone. I mean, I have a whole journal full of prayers for my future husband. I just had so much faith that God was going to send me someone that loves Jesus as much as I do, and he did. And the thing that makes my heart so happy is that Micah and I will raise our family to love Jesus. That's one thing that I didn't have growing up, and something that I want so badly for my children. So I guess the main takeaway is I just hope that if there are any women that are in the same situation, like waiting on that next phase of their life, finding a husband, that you would just be patient and just keep praying.
You know, you get to that mindset and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting older, like I don't have somebody, like whatever. You don't want to settle, because God is going to prepare, somebody's he's preparing someone for you, you know. And just to move and make something happen, like it's just going to be destruction. It's going to cause so much pain and heartache and everything else in the back end of your life. So it's like, wait, and it's so much easier said than done. You know, like I remember when me and my husband started dating when I was 22, and all my friends were like already getting married. They were in serious relationships, all this, and I'm like, I'm 13 bridesmaids at bridesmaid dresses at this point. Like, I'm tired of being weddings. But you know, like, it was my time. Like, God is never late. He's never early. Like, his will is always on time. So we just have to remember, like, even though, like, we're in that waiting period and whatever, like, he's preparing us for that.
Exactly. And, you know, even when you're in that waiting period, it's like, I just encourage the girls to, like, not compromise your standards. Like, you know what a godly man is going to bring to a relationship. And I just encourage them to, like, not settle in that, not let their standards waver. You know, waiting for Micah was, like, probably one of the hardest things ever, because you get lonely, but it's so worth it. Yeah. You know, when you wait on what God has for you.
I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but, you know, like, you'll know. And that's one of those things too about that peace. Yeah. Like, you'll have peace when it's right. Yeah. You'll know.
And there are certain things that, like, you know, everybody talks about red flags these days, but there are certain things that, like, are not, that you shouldn't compromise on. Like, regardless, like, you know, everybody slips up, but when you are searching for your husband, like, there are certain things that you shouldn't let slide. You shouldn't let go. You shouldn't compromise on.
No.
So if you see those things, just get out of there.
See ya. Yeah. Girl, if I could talk to my younger self, I'm telling you what. Like, that is one of the hardest things that, you know, like, I've had to learn to deal with is, like, I wish I would have came to God sooner. Yeah, I wish I would have, like, stopped searching the world, you know, like, and it's just so hard. Like, I have beat myself up about that so many times, and I'm like, you can't. Like, it's only here for, you know, here on out. It's not what you did in your past, like, whatever. And so, like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to start this, and, like, to have, you know, us get on here and just chat and everything, because, like, we all have different backgrounds. Everybody that I've, you know, already have up until the end of the year coming, like, we've all dealt with different things, and it just shows you, like, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done. Like, God can use you. He's called you. If you have a pulse, you have a purpose. Yeah.
I think, like, looking back now, it's like if I would have just surrendered to God so much earlier, I would have saved myself so much heartbreak.
Yes.
But then I just think, like, everybody has their testimony for a reason. Yep. Like, everybody's testimony is going to reach different people for different reasons and encourage different people. So it's like everybody's life has a purpose, and God has a plan for everybody and everybody's testimony.
Logan, thank you so much for coming on today. It has been such a blessing to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this podcast, and can't wait to see, like, how many people you reach and all of the stories that you have.
Oh, you are so sweet. So, guys, make sure that you are liking and subscribing our page. We have so many great testimonies that are coming out. Stay tuned, stay blessed, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.